All right, let's talk about one of the biggest IT decisions you can make, replacing your server virtualization platform. It can feel overwhelming, but today we're going to walk through a strategic framework to make it easier. Our guide for this explainer is a fantastic report from Virtualization Options LLC, a technology research and advisory group based out of Colorado. Let's get into it.
The report kicks things off with this quote, and honestly, it hits the nail on the head. We often think about the cost of a new system, but sticking with old tech has its own price. It's a risk to your business, your security, and your ability to keep up. The cost of doing nothing, it can be absolutely massive.
So to make sense of all of this, we're going to follow the report's 6 key stages. We'll start with the legacy trap, navigate the hardware crossroads, check our foundation, build for resilience, learn how to make a smart decision, and then look ahead to your virtualization future. First up, the legacy trap. Before you can figure out where you're going, you've got to understand why you need to leave in the first place. This part is all about nailing down those fundamentals.
So what exactly are we talking about here? Server virtualization. At its heart, it's this incredible trick where you take one big physical server and digitally slice it up into a bunch of smaller, isolated virtual servers. They all think they have their own hardware, but they're all sharing the same box. And why on earth do we do this? One word: efficiency. The payoff is just huge. A server that's not virtualized might only be using, 15, maybe 20% of its power? With virtualization, you can crank that number up to 70 or even 80%. That's way less hardware, less electricity, and a whole lot less money spent. Now, the magic behind this is a piece of software called a hypervisor. And in the professional world, in data centers, we're almost always talking about Type 1 or bare metal. It runs right on the server hardware itself, giving you the best possible performance and security. Type 2 is different. It runs on top of an operating system, more like an app you'd run on your laptop. So what pushes an organization to actually go through with a replacement? The report really boils it down to 3 big drivers. First, you hit a technical wall. Performance is suffering, or it just won't work with newer hardware. Second, the business needs something new, like moving faster, beefing up security, or connecting to the cloud. And third, the pure economics of it all. Your license fees are climbing, and maintenance is just costing you a fortune. And that leads us perfectly into our second stage, the hardware crossroads. Once you've decided a change is needed, this is pretty much your first major fork in the road. And it really all comes down to this one single question. You have racks and racks of servers. That's a huge capital investment. Can you actually reuse them with a new platform? Or do you have to bite the bullet and buy all new gear? This is a really critical balancing act between cost and risk.
And here's the core trade-off in a nutshell. On the one hand, reusing that hardware is a no-brainer financially, right? It saves a ton of cash up front. But, and this is a big but, on the other hand, you're embracing some real technical risks. That older equipment might not be fully compatible, it could slow things down, or it might just be more likely to break because, it's older.
So here's the deal. You absolutely must check the hardware compatibility list from any new vendor you're considering. This isn't just a suggestion. You have to verify everything. Does the processor have the right virtualization features? Is the memory fast enough? Are your network and storage cards officially certified? Is all the firmware up to date? Get this wrong and you're in for a world of hurt.
All right, once you've got a hardware strategy, it's time to move to stage 3, checking your foundation. We're talking about the bedrock of your entire virtual environment, your storage and your networking. When you look at storage, performance isn't just one thing. The report shows this really well. For something like virtual desktops, what you really care about is IOPS. That's a huge number of small, fast operations. But for a mission-critical database, it's all about low latency, how quickly you get a response. You have to match your storage to what your applications are actually doing. And over on the networking side of the house, security has really evolved. We started with VLANs, which were fine for basic network segmentation. Then we got VXLANs to handle things at a much bigger scale. But the real gold standard today is microsegmentation. This lets you put a virtual firewall around every single workload, which is a total game changer for stopping threats from spreading inside your data center. With a solid foundation, we can move on to stage 4. Building for resilience. This is all about answering the question, how do we protect this powerful new system when things inevitably go wrong? First, let's get 2 terms straight that people often mix up. Business continuity is the big, overarching plan to keep the business running, no matter what.
Disaster recovery, or DR, is the technical part of that plan. It's about how you get your IT systems back online after a catastrophe. So DR is just one piece of your much larger business continuity puzzle. Now, for the more common day-to-day problems like a server failure, you need what's called high availability, or HA. What this means is, if one of your physical servers dies, all the virtual machines that were running on it will automatically restart on another healthy server in the cluster. It happens without you lifting a finger, but it requires having no single points of failure anywhere. When you're planning for a real disaster, though, these two metrics are everything. Your RPO, or recovery point objective, answers the question, how much data are you willing to lose? Is it 15 minutes worth or 15 seconds? And your RTO, recovery time objective, asks how fast you need to be back up and running, 4 hours or 4 minutes. The answers to these two questions will define your entire DR strategy and budget.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. Now we get to the climax of our journey, stage 5, making the smart decision. This is where we take all that complexity and all that information and turn it into a clear, logical, and data-backed choice.
To avoid just going with your gut, the report recommends this really simple but powerful 3-step method. First, you define all of your criteria: technical, business, cost, everything. Second, and this is the most important part, you assign a weight to each one based on what your specific business actually cares about most. And finally, you create an objective scoring scale, like 1 to 5, so you can compare everything fairly.
And here's what that looks like when you put it all together. On this sample scorecard, solution B is the winner, but not by much. Now, the real insight here isn't just the final score. Look at the weighting. Technical capabilities was the most important factor, at 40%. So even though Solution A had better management tools, Solution B's strength in that high priority category, plus its better cost, is what pushed it over the top. This makes your choice completely clear and easy to defend.
And this brings us to our final section, your virtualization future. Because the whole point of this entire process isn't just to buy a new product. It's to give your whole organization a real strategic advantage. This last quote from the report just sums up the entire philosophy perfectly. It's so easy to get wowed by a long list of fancy features you'll probably never even use, but the best platform is the one that actually helps your business achieve its specific goals, the one that fits your team, your budget, and your vision for the future. So we'll leave you with this final question to think about. Is your current technology a solid foundation you can build on, or is it a heavy anchor of technical debt that's just holding you back? By going through a process like this one, you can make sure your answer is a confident one and turn your infrastructure into a genuine engine for innovation.